Hello there and welcome to my channel Schön erklärt. My name is Laura and I'm super excited to welcome you today to the knit along of the Pure Pleasure Top Part 2. In last week's video, we started by looking at all the materials that you need for the Pure Pleasure Top by Wooladdicts. We checked out where you can purchase the pattern, and also we decided what size you should knit and what gauge that you reach with your own knitting style. So by this week's video, you should be all set up to start the Pure Pleasure Top knitting alongside me. So in today's video, we will together cast on the stitches that you need for the back of your Pure Pleasure Top. We will knit all the way to the place where we have to put the stitch markers. This is where the front and the back will be combined in video number 3. And we will knit all the way up to the neckline and to the shoulder part. Also, I shouldn't forget to introduce our little assistant that we have today, Miss Maggie. She will of course help us especially with unwinding the yarn, right? So this is my garment that I already knitted. You can see that it's kind of a square piece so far, and it should have the length of 32 centimeters. Let's find out together if we already reached 32 centimeters and how we should measure that. You can see in your pattern that it says to measure the height hanging. So to do that, it's actually easier to work with a ruler and not with a measuring band, because already you have probably not enough hands to do the measurement yourself. So I take my ruler and I basically hold my garment like this in the air, and I place the ruler with 0 on top, of course, and I check where my garment ends. So I'm just at 32 centimeters, which means I'm ready to go to the next step, which is to add some stitch markers right here and on the other side of the needle. So we're gonna do that right now. In this step, we will place the stitch markers at the 32 centimeters that we just measured hanging the piece. So for this, I have 2 stitch markers here. But basically you can take whatever you like. Just be sure that it's something that you can open with a little clippy like here, so that you don't continue taking the stitch marker up, because it should really stay at the 32 centimeters. So I'm simply opening my stitch marker, this, and I will mark my first stitch on this 32 centimeters row with the stitch marker, like this. And then of course I'll have to do the same thing on the other side of my garment. So again, I'm in the same row where I measured 32 centimeters, and I will mark the first stitch on this side also with a stitch marker. Next step will be to knit all the way up to your neckline. You can read in your pattern how high this is for your size, and we'll meet back then. Okay, so now we have knitted all the way up to our neckline. So the next step will be that we will start to cast off some stitches in the middle to start creating the neckline from the back. And you can see in your knitting pattern that you will cast off in the first step 19 stitches. So now you know how many stitches you have to knit, then cast off 19 stitches and knit another amount of the same stitches as here. So let's do this together. Okay, so I knitted now my first half of the stitches that I will continue to work the shoulder part with. So now I have to cast off 19 stitches. see that I have now here in the middle the beginning of our neckline from the back part of the sweater. On the right side I have my right shoulder part, and on the left needle I have my left shoulder part. So just finish knitting this part of the sweater in a normal stockinette stitch until you reach the end. Okay, basically what we've done now is we have splitted our Pure Pleasure top into two parts. We have the left shoulder right here. Here we have the neckline, and we have the right shoulder right here. So what we will do now is we will finish the shoulder parts separately from each other. So therefore it's actually easiest if you can put the right shoulder now on a separate string of thread or on a separate string of a circular needle that you might have at hand. If you use the cable of a circular needle, they usually come with those nice little endings here that will stop the yarn from falling off. Don't forget to close your cable, otherwise you might lose your stitches. We don't want that. Again, if you just have some yarn and a needle at hand, that's completely fine. You can just pull through a piece of leftover yarn and make a little knot so that it doesn't slip out. So we put now the right shoulder of our top on the side and continue with the left part right here. So we will now first purl one row back. Okay, so we purled back, and the next step will be to continue casting off. So you can see we're again at the neckline, and we will cast off the first 3 stitches here. Okay, so we've cast off those additional 3 stitches, and we will just knit again the rest of the row and purl back. Okay, the next step will be now to start casting off stitches of the shoulder part. These stitches will not be cast off after the neckline, so not the way we did it so far, but will be cast off on the edge of your shirt. By doing that, you will create kind of like a little slant of your shoulder part, which will of course fit very nicely then to your body. And for this you will knit the first part of the stitches and cast off the second part according to the size of pattern that you're knitting. So you can find this in the knitting instructions, how many stitches this is for your size. Okay people, we have a small problem. So I just followed the instructions and I cast off my left shoulder here. But when I started looking at this and I tried to imagine how this would look like when I sew the front part and the back part together, then somehow I started to imagine this kind of like bulge here that I will create, because this cast off here is just so thick and it will be the same on the front side of the garment. Actually, I dreamed about it. I couldn't decide what I should do, if I should just follow the pattern or not. And I decided actually I'm not gonna follow the pattern in this case. So what I will do now is I will open this part of the cast off and put the loose stitches on a string. I will do the same part here, and later on when I have my front part finished, I will combine those two with a Kitchener stitch. A Kitchener stitch will create a neat combination of the front and the back part of the shirt. Actually, it will create like another stitch. It will look like a V-shaped stitch that combines the two parts, and it will look quite natural. So I just loosened the first stitch where I pulled through the yarn to finish the casting off, and I will take a piece of thread that I still have and put this quickly on my needle. So be careful to catch the stitches when you loosen them. We don't want to create a mess right now. But you know, I have this kind of like perfectionist thing going on, obviously. And so if you don't want to follow along me here, but just following the pattern, then please do so. Okay, so you can see that I now pulled a thread through my 10 stitches that I cast off at the end, and I have now the beginning or the end of my yarn that I cut off previously on my right side, so on the neck part of my garment. I'm just gonna make a little knot here that it doesn't open and I'm not losing my stitch when I'm not paying attention. Okay. So now we're doing the same thing over here. Okay, so now that we've put the stitches from the left shoulder on a separate thread, we're heading over to the right shoulder. So if you remember correctly, we were knitting a knit stitch towards the neckline and then casting off the neckline. This means the next row here will be a purl row. So for this we're taking some of our leftover yarn that we're having, and we just start purling back from here. Okay, when you purl back, just turn around your garment again. What we're doing now on the right shoulder is we're knitting one row back, and we will cast off the last 3 stitches, like we did on the left side of the shoulder. So honestly, I don't know if there's an easier way where you will not have to sew in that many threads at the end. If you know a more elegant way, please go ahead with that. Otherwise, I will now start with a new thread to purl back. Actually, I would be quite curious if you found a better solution for this casting off the threads at the end here. So if you found a better solution, please leave me a comment. I'm always happy to learn something new. Okay, when you purl back, of course you're gonna turn around your garment again. So what would happen now is that we would cast off the first stitches here and then knit the rest of the stitches according to the size you are knitting. So as we're not doing that because we want to combine, or at least I want to combine the front and the back in Kitchener stitch, I'm just going to put the first stitches that I would cast off now on a separate needle and thread and continue knitting the second part. To make a little knot again so that I'm not losing the stitches when I'm working on the rest of the garment. And you know what's a bit funny now? Because we didn't cast off the stitches we have the end of the yarn here and we will have to sew in another end. But nevertheless, I'm just gonna go with that because I don't want to have this bulgy kind of meet up of the front and the back. So I will cut this up and just continue again here. Now I will purl back those stitches and then also put them on a separate thread. Okay, using another piece of thread. And put those stitches on. Okay, so what we have now is we have the finished back part of the garment. With the right shoulder where we didn't cast off the stitches, but we put them on two separate levels. You can see like a bit of stairway here. We put some thread to secure the stitches, and the same thing we did on the left shoulder right here. So we're all set to combine the front and the back as soon as we finish the front. So finally we figured out what to do with this neck part and the shoulder part of the back of the Pure Pleasure top. If you want to follow the pattern either way, just go ahead. I decided to do it that way and I hope it will turn out well. And I really hope that following me knitting along here is helpful to you to complete this project. In next week's video, we will start of course the front of the Pure Pleasure top, also place the stitch markers, knit all the way to the top and sew the two pieces together and already finalize the Pure Pleasure top. So I hope that you will join me of course again also for video number 3. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button to get immediate update when the video is online and you can continue knitting alongside me the Pure Pleasure top from Wooladdicts. If you have any recommendations or comments about what I could do better with this, especially with this strange shoulder part here, please leave me a comment down below so that I can read it and answer it to you. And other than that, I would say we see each other next week. I'm super excited to welcome you back. And until then, I wish you a great and happy week. Bye.